Vlog on a blog. Tomorrow's news today. Get to the truth. Listen, learn, live. Visit us at yadaya.com.
Good advice. Listen, learn, live, and visit us at yadaya.com. I'd highly recommend all of those things. Hello, Roger. How are you?
Good, very good, Craig. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're going to show us how to do calisthenics here. This is this was back in the time that Americans were. There you go. Back in the times that Americans were trying to who knows what in Afghanistan. I mean, there was no purpose in us being in Afghanistan, and they're trying to teach the local Afghanis how to do jumping jacks. And so we'll play it because it's a hoot, and then we'll talk about really what the stupidity of this whole thing really does tell us.
Be all you can be.
I'm in.
Hey! All right. So we sent hundreds.
Those Army Rangers have got to have some patience.
Oh man, yeah. To think of the number of troops, tens of thousands of American troops into Afghanistan, all to chase a phantom, to make a bad situation much worse. And here they are trying to teach these Muslims how to do calisthenics, not recognizing that there's a reason that there aren't any Muslim world-class athletes. It is, jihad doesn't take much athletic skill or much intelligence, to tell you the truth. The sad thing about this is that George W. Bush, who I knew, who told me he was going to do this even before he was elected president, because he thought he would be more popular if he was a wartime president. He lied about Afghanis being responsible for 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And then he lied about Iraq being responsible for 9/11 and Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, neither of which were true. And based upon those lies, which Americans accepted to 95%, I mean, it was so bad in terms of the perception of Americans and the percentage that believed the lies that Afghanis had something to do with 9/11, and it was a good move to go into Afghanistan to kick some Afghani butt to punish them for 9/11. That when the original host of Coast to Coast, Art Bell, which was the most popular radio program of its time, wanted to do a show in opposition to the American invasion of Afghanistan, showing that it was counterproductive. I was the only person that he could find in the country that could speak to that intelligently. And of course, at that point, I'd done 5,000. I would do another 5,000 radio shows after it. There was no one else.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained that what we were doing in Afghanistan was going to make and was making a bad situation much worse, and that it was ultimately foolish, and that there was no way to fix Afghanistan because of Islam. And yet we stayed for more than a decade. And tens of thousands of Afghanis died, thousands of Americans died for nothing, made a bad situation worse. When America went into Afghanistan, the Taliban had a very thin hold on one province. And when we left Afghanistan, they controlled all of Afghanistan. So it had exactly the opposite effect America said they were trying to achieve. It's like the war in Iran. It's had exactly the opposite effect across the board. And yet the propaganda arms of America continue to lie, and people believe them, and it's almost impossible to get anyone who is political or religious to appreciate the truth. So this is just one of many travesties of America, not knowing the nature of Islam, not knowing that Islam was responsible for 9/11, not Afghanistan, not Iraq, that there were no Al-Qaeda operatives in Iraq, that Al-Qaeda was meaningless in Afghanistan, and that the Taliban was present in Afghanistan only because the United States had rented them from the Pakistani government and the ISI previously and armed them to go off and kill some Ruskies years prior. And that's the only reason the Taliban even existed in Afghanistan. So we lied about everything. The United States did. Made everything worse. Took a country that was no longer supplying cocaine and heroin to the world. And by the time we left, it was the largest supplier in the world while the CIA was there. And the moment the CIA left, it went back to being an insignificant supplier. Everything from the CIA to the US military was a lie. I even tracked the first 500 deaths in Afghanistan and also in Iraq. And what I found is that 100% of the time, the United States Defense Department, which is what it was called back then, lied. They misrepresented the circumstances under which American soldiers died, and grossly.
Yeah, you can only have so many forklift accidents. I mean,
and universally, it was just tragic. And then we lied about our own operations, and it wasn't until WikiLeaks came out and showed, everything America says is a lie. And yet Americans fly the flag, salute the military, honor their country, when all their country does is destroy and kill and lie. And, this goes back way before Trump. Trump is just better at it or worse at it, depending on which way you want to look at it. He's more murderous, more deceptive, more duplicitous, more disgusting than the others. So he's better at these things than the others were. But these things are all awful. And it's the history of America. I'm just saddened for how far the world has fallen. But this is just, it shows you the ineptitude of the whole thing. And it really isn't a joke, because the most prevalent behavior when America temporarily ousted the Taliban, which previously had been the American ally under Zbigniew Brzezinski and Jimmy Carter, in killing Ruskies, the tribal chieftains would come back into those towns, and the first thing they would do is play bocce ball. They'd find a cute 4 to 6 year old boy, nude him up, tie him butt up to a bed, and gang rape him. And it's prevalent all through Pakistan and through Afghanistan. In fact, they're so disgusting. Men in Afghanistan and Pakistan, the same customs of Islam, that when a daughter is buried in Pakistan or Afghanistan, they have to lock the tomb, or the father will rape his dead daughter. So, listen, Islam can't be fixed. It's a repulsive religion, and for America to go into Afghanistan and Iraq thinking they were going to make a bad situation better is insane. And the propaganda that the media and the politicians and the military spewed out on this was unforgivable. And at the time, there was one person, who was willing to tell you the truth and who knew the truth. And yet you have no legacy of that credibility and the benefit of that credibility was earned among Americans or in Israel, where it really matters. And at the same time, I took thousands of death threats for doing it. You
Yeah,
saw a
we'll have
video.
a.
Go ahead.
We'll have the colonel or the major on in a little bit, but what the mind virus of this military activity, they know they were deceived, and yet they know what they did was wrong,
Yes,
but they will
yes.
still keep their bric-a-brac on their walls
Yeah,
because they think it
yeah,
gives
they
them
will.
credibility and
Yeah.
have this sense of pride in the military, right?
Yes,
I
why?
served
But
and have
why?
this, and exactly
It's universally used for wrong. It is.
Mhm.
The U.S. military is essentially never used for something that's positive. It's always
Mhm.
used for that which is evil and inappropriate. And you would even have to go into World War I and World War II, and you'd make exactly the same decision when you know how it
Mhm.
was deployed and what it did. Last night I watched a full documentary on the dropping of the Fat Boy, the plutonium bomb on Nagasaki, and it's just revolting, our attitude. And the fact is that bomb on Nagasaki only killed 35,000 people. When I say only killed 35,000, we were firebombing and with white sulfur, burning the flesh off of women and children to the tune of 50,000 a night.
Wow.
Across Japan,
That's-
just like we did in Germany. We were terrorists.
Mhm.
America likes to write its own history, and the history that it writes presents it as a great nation, and it is absolutely, unequivocally not. And the world is now beginning to see what I've seen for decades.
Have you heard of the Japanese bat bombs?
What's
The
that?
Americans had what they call bat bombs. They knew that Tokyo, especially, and all the cities really were wooden structured buildings.
Right.
And they knew that if you released bats into the air, they would fly into structures. So they did some bombing missions where they attached many explosives to a bunch of bats, like thousands of bats, drop them in a bomb type device. And when it got to a certain altitude, it opened up, the bats flew out, went into the buildings, and poof, major firestorms throughout the city without dropping a single conventional bomb.
The first cluster bomb, huh?
The first cluster bomb.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine a country being more vile, and then patting itself on the back, telling itself how wonderful it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never been worse than it is at this very moment, which is why Isaiah devoted an entire chapter. The 18th chapter of Isaiah is 100% devoted to demeaning and denouncing the United States of America at this time and its president. All right, what do we have next? After jumping jacks, now I feel all better. Oh, no, I don't.
Oh,
No.
Now you don't. Yeah.
Oh, well, it still needs to be discussed. The media, Marxist media, even Christian media, would have you believe that female genital mutilation is not a religious practice, that it is a social practice. And that is because about 5% of genital child mutilation is not of Muslims. 95% is. So they can't draw the correlation between 95%. But the 5% that isn't Islamic is because Muslims dominate to a 95% degree the very cultures that other religious groups have accepted the same practice. So even then, it's 100% influenced by Islam. The motivation for female genital mutilation in the Islamic world, and there's 250 million little girls that have been have their genitals mutilated, is that combination of two things, maybe three. The first is that the religiosity of the Quran only comes from two sources. One is that Muhammad's relatives had a religious scam around the Kaaba where they would charge caravanners money to care for, feed, and dust their rock gods. That was what the Kaaba was for. And they had a watering hole. It was actually in Petra. It wasn't Mecca. Mecca didn't even exist at the time. It was in Petra. And so the ships that would sail up the Gulf of Aqaba and then need to get to the Mediterranean, they would go through Petra because it had a aqueduct and a very fine spring that fed that aqueduct. And it was a religious town. And so by 3 generations before Muhammad, Qusay came up with, after the earthquake destroyed the aqueduct, and there wasn't anything left of the town, they moved in and they turned the crumbled temples into rock piles for rock gods. And they charged dusting and feeding services of those rock gods. That's what the Hajj is all about. That is what Ramadan is all about. That's what the prostration prayer is all about. It's all about the pagan religious past of Muhammad's great-grandfather. All right, so there is, that's part of the religiosity. But the vast majority of the religiosity of Islam and the Quran actually comes from rabbis.
Mm-hmm.
They sold Muhammad their Talmud stories. And that is why the Quran mentions so many characters out of the Torah and prophets, is because the rabbis literally sold them to him. That's why the Allah, Allahu, Allahi, as he is presented in the Quran, is known as rabbi. They don't use either of the 2 Hebrew words, and all of the Quranic Arabic is Hebrew. They don't use the Hebrew word for Lord, which is either Adon or Baal. They use rabbi.
Mm-hmm.
And so their rabbis were so sneaky, they fooled Muhammad into believing that rabbi was the word for Lord. So in the covenant, the sign of the covenant is circumcision, not female circumcision, absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
Male circumcision. And the male circumcision does nothing to alter the experience of pleasure for a man to have sex with a woman. In fact, it heightens it. And it's actually a healthy thing to do. And it's when it's done on the 8th day and there's minimal that is snipped off, that's the time when our blood coagulates more readily and heals more readily than at any other time in our lives. And so it's the way of saying, I want you set apart. I want you different. I want you, when you bathe and you care for your son, and when your son grows up to become a man, that you're constantly remembered that you're different than other people. You're cut off of the human customs and human religious practice and unto Yahweh. And so when they spoke of circumcision, the Muslims said, oh, well, then if it's, good for them, must be good for us. So they accepted circumcision. It's the same reason they don't eat pork, the rabbis who talked about that. So then in Islam, because women have no value other than to sell, a mother and father will sell their daughter to anyone, no matter how young she is or how old they are. But that daughter's worth requires the parents being able to prove that she is a virgin. So they'll not only cut out her clit so that she would never want to have sex and never enjoy sex, because enjoying sex is not something that the woman is supposed to do in Islam. That's the reason why the reward is perpetual virgins who grow a new
virginity every time. Yeah.
New virginity every time. So that they're always in pain every time they have sex, and always it is a conquest. So for the Muslim man, a woman is never supposed to enjoy sex. That's strictly conquest. The more pain, the better the conquest. Therefore, there's no reason for her to have a clit where she could actually enjoy being sexual with a man. And they not only do that, but they sew up most of the vagina so that you couldn't even penetrate one if you wanted to, so that they can prove that she's a virgin, where they can charge more money for their daughter, and they can sell a 6, 8, 9, 10-month-old girl to a 40, 50-year-old man for money. And so that's why they do it. They do it to assure that they can make the most money because their daughter will be proven a virgin, and because in Islam, women aren't supposed to do anything other than please men, and therefore there'll be no pleasure for them. This is the nature of the religion. And they have mutilated millions and millions and millions of little girls, and it's the mothers who put their daughters through it. I told you the other day that Muslim women are far worse than Muslim men. I know that to be a fact. I've, exposed myself by doing these 10,000 radio interviews and writing the books on the nature of Islam, and I'm assaulted by women far more than men, and they're far more supportive of Islam even than men are, and far more vicious. And so this is what they do to one another. And it's a savage religion. It's inexcusable. And yet you have Marxists who are complete hypocrites bonding with them, promoting them. And you have even today a Marxist Muslim, which is a complete hypocrite.
Mm-hmm. One of the most fascinating things of goddamn religion was the profitable profit scheme chapter, and finding out that it was Fatima that really came up with, invented Islam. A woman.
Yes,
a woman invented the religion that would enslave women for centuries.
Muhammad met Allah, who was Satan, in a cave during Ramadan, and he tried to commit suicide because that dark spirit beat the living crap out of him, and he tried to throw himself off the edge of the mountain. Now, there are no mountains in Mecca, so he was in Petra, and he came back and said, I fear for my life. I am demon possessed. And he was out practicing the pagan religious practices associated with the Kaaba, which were his great-grandfathers, that, in other words, totally and completely pagan rock gods. And she says no. And she actually had a caravan business where he was a bum. He says, no, you're not going to embarrass me that way. You're not going to run around as a demon-possessed madman. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to say that, no, you were inspired by God to be his messenger, and that's what happened. And now you're going to have recitals from that God. We're going to turn the Kaaba and this whole scheme into a money-making scheme, and you're going to take control of it for me. And that's going to be the profitable profit scheme. And the profitable profit plan made a whole chapter in goddamn religion as a result of that. Of course, Muhammad took it to the next step, and he became a thug. He started a criminal enterprise, and he started murdering his own kin, raping them, enslaving them, torturing them. And when he ran out of kin to attack and to mutilate and to kill and to enslave, he turned on the Jews and perpetrated apartheid and then genocide on Jews, selling the children into slavery for more weapons, raping the women, and killing the men. That's the nature and the birth of Islam. If you don't like it, tough shit. Go learn the truth. Go read Goddamn Religion, and then write me a letter after you've read the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion.
Yeah. This just blows me away, though. I mean, 140,000 women affected, and that's the ones that they know about in France alone.
In France.
Mm-hmm.
And supposedly a civilized country. And they can't talk about it because you mention it and they call you an Islamophobe. No, if you're willing to speak out against it, you're the antithesis of Islamic.
Yes,
you're not afraid of Islam if you're willing to speak out against it. You are an Islamophobe when you're not willing to speak out against it. This is Islam. This is the Black Death they brought into France.
Bringing it into other countries in Europe as well. Same thing is going on in a lot of other countries there besides France, I would imagine.
Yeah. If you're a man and you're the woman you're making love with doesn't enjoy the experience as much as you do, that experience cannot be wholly satisfying for you. Yeah. And the only way that experience is mutually satisfying is when both participants enjoy it to the same extent. All right, so here is the pile of shit that, as the President of the United States, and he is in his gilded brothel, and he's lying about South Korea. First, he says that fat bad hair boy is his BFF.
Mhm.
Oh, we're such great friends. Now, this is one of the most ruthless dictators in the world, and Trump says, "Oh, we're best friends. I like him better than I like South Korea." You forgot that America fought a war to keep the communist North from destroying the non-communist South. He forgot all about that. So he is now imagining that it isn't appropriate to provide protection for the country that only exists as a separate country because America intervened in between the North and the South.
Mhm.
And he says that he negotiated and the South Koreans paid a $3 billion protection fee, which, if it existed, would be akin to him being the godfather of the mafia. And that's what the mafia does. Mafia goes to you and say, if you want to survive, you pay me this money. And so he said, I have a $3 billion protection fee, and they paid it. They didn't like paying it, but they paid it. And then Obama came along, and Obama completely reduced it to nothing. And then now I'm back, and so I'm telling him it needs to be 10 billion. It's all bullshit. All of it. I mean, there he is sitting there in the Oval Office of the United States, and all he's doing is lying. There's no correlation between what he says and true. The South Koreans have never paid $3 billion to America. The original reimbursement for what America was doing was in the $600,000 to $800,000, or 600 to 800,000, or million was the range of it. So Trump never had a phone call where he said it's going to cost you $3 billion, and they agreed to do it. Never happened. And there was no $3 billion fee. It's all a lie. And his deal with Biden renouncing it isn't true. During the Biden time, it was actually increased by 20%, not wiped out. And there's been no discussion of increasing it to $3 billion, much less 10 billion. It's all made up. And even if it were true, let's just say that it were true, what would it be worth? Why would anybody pay the United States to protect them? What happened to Kuwait? What happened to Qatar? What happened to UAE? What happened to the Saudi Arabia?
They got bombed.
If you're in, they got bombed.
They got bombed.
They got bombed. America deserted them and reneged on the promises it had made. America has treaties to defend the dictators of the Arab fiefdoms with the lives and blood of Americans, which is despicable. And yet it fled and ran. And so there's no country on earth that would do that. And what happened with the last carrier America had in the Pacific?
It caught on fire. ran away.
No,
in the Pacific.
They pulled it. The last carrier that America had in the Pacific, it moved out of the Pacific, and it's steaming to the Persian Gulf and Arabian Sea.
I think there's a destroyer over there that's disabled in that area somewhere too.
Well, we had one. We had a destroyer that was disabled. The carrier was the last carrier we had near. In fact, you know where the carrier was? It was in port in Da Nang. America's lone carrier for the Pacific, was in the port of Da Nang, Vietnam. You can't make this shit up. And you know that Vietnam now is in the top 5 trading partners of the United States. You just can't make this stuff up. So anyway, can you imagine being a parent of one of those 58,000 Americans that lost their lives in that stupid war, and knowing either of those two things? Anyway, we just pulled the carrier out because of the mutiny that's taking place on the Abraham Lincoln. So they're going to replace the Abraham Lincoln with the carrier that we had in Da Nang. So we don't have a carrier there anymore. Don't have a battle group. We don't have a plan. We don't have any. We don't have any interceptors anymore. We don't have any guided weapons anymore. And so he wants them to pay, and he's $10 billion, imagining that they previously paid $3 billion, and that he had all these discussions with them when they never took place.
Well, and that's the second thing is that they want to have these. Well, he doesn't want to have the war games with South Korea, right? The maneuvers, because he doesn't want to upset his buddy Kim Jong, right? Because we're such great friends, and so it wouldn't be right for us to do this. But he's also, first of all, we can't because we have nothing in the Pacific to be able to war
correct.
Game with you with.
We just took the carrier from Da Nang from being chumming with the Vietnamese to go over there.
The second thing is he's all butthurt that South Korea wouldn't help him out in the war that we've won in Iran, right?
Right. And he even says that. He even says it in such a disgusting way. He says, we didn't need their help.
Right.
He's lost the war. We didn't need their help. But nevertheless, I said, would you like to help? Because, this is more important to you than me. And they said no. And, we didn't need their help. But the fact that they said they wouldn't help, I'm going to remember that. And so I'm not going to help you either. Tough shit. It's all about him. About him. Yeah. And, the fact you hear something like this, where everything is either personal ego or an outright lie. And he's sitting there in this gilded whorehouse. And you think that still 35% of Americans support this piece of shit. It's astonishing what's happened to the decline of America, that you can have Satan in the White House. And again, there's one person that's actually figured out that, yes, that's Satan incarnate. The prophet spoke of him, and he proves it every day. And yet there's one person that knows it. What in the hell is wrong with folks? They just brick brains.
And not just support him, vehemently support him, right? Yeah. I mean, they are going to. The news for them will be how he tells that press girl to shut up and be quiet, and she's fake news. That's all they'll talk about. Won't talk about one fact about what happened. It'll be all about him browbeating that woman.
They are so rude. They are so demeaning of women. They're such losers in their lives. They're so vulgar that they say, that's what I voted for because he's doing what I'd like to do.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they're doing. And that's how vulgar they are. MAGA is just vulgar trash. Unfortunately, the other side, the Democrats have become Marxist trash. And so America is just screwed. I mean, there is zero hope that any of this works out well.
Yeah. We got a true psychopath that work in the White House. What could go wrong with that? A malignant narcissist psychopath that is not just demon possessed. He's the manifestation of Satan. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is Donald Trump, new U.S. territory. I mean, actually, this is his head tweet. He has a head tweeter now, of course.
Eva Braun.
Eva Braun, who is the head tweeter, a diaper bag girl, prime propagandist and promoter, and part-time mistress. And of course, she's a Christian. She's the one who writes these things for him. They actually have video now of the two of them creating these posts, and her creating them and him approving the post before sending it out. Then he asked, what's the audience for that one? How much? Isn't this sweet? They work together that way. So he has said this is new U.S. territory. What part of that? Because you have UAE there, which I didn't know was for sale. You have the very tip out there. That's Oman. And so that's the same thing that you have in the bottom part of your bottom right of your circle. And the top is Iran, and the rest is not territory, it's water.
Literally water, yes.
So what part of that became U.S. territory?
Right. Well, we're going to bomb the shit out of Oman, remember? So we got a chance
Yes.
there. We got a chance of getting that. Okay.
Yes.
The other part of that is typically the territorial
by the way-
waters extend
way, the
off the
United States is-
coastline, not the other
yeah.
way around.
Yeah, the United States is not going to bomb Oman, and the reason the United States is not going to bomb Oman is because should America do that, and they turn on the Arab Sunni Muslim fiefdoms on the western side of the Persian Gulf, and while they're fighting a war with the Sunni Persian Muslims on the east side of the Persian Gulf, then America will prove that it is the foremost enemy of Islam and will have 2 billion enemies. And the petrodollar will be just stuffed so far down Trump's throat that America's economy will crater within the weekend. So when you make a statement, we're going to bomb the shit out of them, what you're listening to is Satan brag without even thinking, because there is a 0% possibility that the United States is going to bomb Oman. If they did, it would be that'd be enemies on both sides of the strait. By the way, in terms of U.S. territory, you'd have to have a U.S. port there. You'd have to have U.S. flags there. You'd have to have you'd be speaking English there. You'd have to the currency would be the dollar. You'd have to do a lot of things. It'd be under U.S. constitutional law. And the U.S. can't even fly a helicopter through that region. It can't. It can't just send up a boat through that region, a ship through that region. America can't do diddly squat in that region. It can't access that region. So what are you talking about here? And UAE is now negotiating directly with Iran.
Yeah.
It's
So,
just,
and we've already got a Gulf of America. So what did he want to call it? He wanted to call it the Gulf of Trump or something. I forget.
the Gulf,
That's been so long
the
ago.
Gulf of Trump. Yeah, the
It's-
Gulf of Trump.
No.
The Strait of Trump. The Strait of Trump.
Strait
yeah,
of
the
Trump.
Strait of Trump. Yeah, I was surprised he wrote Hormuz here. U.S. territory, Strait of Hormuz. It's the Strait of Trump. Yeah. Naming rights. You just shake your head.
Yeah, it's
What can you say?
participate in the delusion.
broadcasting
I mean,
from the Isle of Crag, aren't we?
Yeah,
Yes.
here's a twist in. You shake your head and twist in. This is Ryle who wrote, the devil is not anti-religion. Well, that's true because Satan is religious. It's God who is anti-religious. So God is anti-religious, not Satan. Satan is pro-religion. But anti-Christ, no. Well, Satan is the Antichrist, and he is pro-Christ because the demon-possessed man working for him created the illusion of a Christ. He was denied. Was that say denied? He has devised.
He has devised.
It's hard to read it in the glare here, but he has devised so many religions and so many versions of Christianity. Well, it's true. He devised every version of Christianity. That's true. But that does not serve your purpose. To blind people to the truth of God's gospel. You know, it's so obvious that it's not God's gospel that when Paul was presenting his gospel, and the gospel is Paul's term. He calls it an euangelion. It is entirely his term. You'll find it nowhere mentioned by God, not in the Torah, not in the prophets, not in the writings, not in the Psalms, not in the word pictures. There is no gospel or evangelion in any of those places. God does not have one. Its emergence is evangelion by Paul. But Paul specifically says he is so egocentric, so Trumpian in his approach, that Paul said that if somebody else has a gospel that is different than his, that gospel has no value, even if that gospel came directly from heaven. So he's saying that his gospel did not come from heaven. And if a gospel comes from heaven that differs from his, it has no validity. So how can the gospel be of God under those circumstances? Or are you incapable of reading Paul's letters?
Well, they probably are. He is incapable of reading Paul's letters. He doesn't get them straight, you know.
But then how would they come up with the term gospel? Because that's Paul's imaginary term. He's the one
God's
that came up
spell.
with
That's God's spell is an incantation.
Yeah, it is. It's the spell of God, who is a Germanic god, and the spell of this Germanic deity. But the underlying Greek is God is euangelion, which can be translated either angelion is from agelos, meaning messenger, and or message, and eu means good or beneficial. So what Paul is saying is that he is the good and beneficial messenger delivering the good and beneficial message, which is entirely his. He will admit it's entirely his, has nothing to do with heaven, and that if heaven had an evangelion that's different than his, then his counts and that one does not. It's so obvious that Christianity is untrue. It's just astounding that people can't see it. And of course, in the second letter to Corinth, Paul specifically says that he is controlled by Satan, that his ego got so out of whack that he was demon possessed and controlled by Satan. And they believe this piece of shit. And then they attribute a gospel to God when Paul actually invented the term and said, no, it's mine.
Well,
Yeah, I'm just go ahead, Roger.
It's certain that, you know, Paul's rantings are closer to Muhammad's than they are to God's. Yahweh's.
Correct.
So I mean, he is for sure demon possessed, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, he's one of two religious founders. Paul and Muhammad both admitted they were demon possessed, and both messages are satanic. Christianity is a satanic religion, as is Islam. You know, the guys that created both of them were demons. You know, Paul wrote the first 14 books of the Christian New Testament, and the next 3 were all inspired by him, Mark, Luke, and the book of Acts. So the first 17 books of the Christian New Testament are nothing but Paul's vomit. A man who admitted that he was demon possessed and who annulled and contradicted everything God said. Matter of fact, there is no point at all, never once does Paul quote God accurately. He misquotes him 100% of the time, and he never quotes his imaginary Jesus. And the reason is that there was no imaginary Jesus at the time to quote. The first gospel didn't exist for another 10 years after Paul's death. So he claims that he is the representative of this imaginary Jesus that he created, and yet he never quoted him once. And every time he quotes the God who he claims gave him authorization to contradict him, he misquotes him every single time. And yet Christians believe this trash.
And he admits to having a thorn.
Yeah, he did. Well, so it's a sock puppet. Muhammad didn't look that good. He was essentially toothless. He was 66 when he started having sex with Aisha, and it was Aisha's toys that he threw out of the bed so that he got sex with a 6-year-old when he was 66 years old. And I can tell you he didn't look that good. As for the sock puppet, Allah is actually a snake. Now, when I first wrote Prophet of Doom, I was not able to deduce whether or not Allah was just an altered persona of Muhammad, whether Allah was just the voice of Muhammad filtered under a phony name, or if there really was a Satan inspiring certain things in Muhammad's life for the express purpose of creating the most demonic of all religions, whereby Muhammad was Satan's stooge. Of course, Muhammad is convinced that he has a spirit pal, because his first experience in Ramadan was of a dark spirit who was really stupid and vicious, so he tried to commit suicide. And he devotes multiple surahs to Satan and demons. actually names them in favor of Satans and demons. And when Allah and Satan are having a conversation, you can't tell which one's speaking. The same message. And Allah spends all of his time in the, when depicted in the Quran, he's always in hell torturing people. And so the question really was, in the Prophet of Doom period, was Allah Muhammad's alter ego? And I addressed this issue far more openly in Goddamn Religion, and write many, many pages of psychiatric analysis of Muhammad to try to resolve that issue. And what I came to conclude is that Satan has a type. And that Satan likes the Muhammads, Pauls, and Trumps of the world, the Adolf Hitlers of the world. He finds them exceedingly easy to bribe and to bully and to possess and to control. And sex, perverted sex particularly, and universal with all those men, perverted sex, rape, pedophilia in particular, incest. Then you add murderous, you add egomaniacal, malignant narcissists, interested in enslaving people, controlling their lives, universally deceitful. Satan has a type. And so I came to the conclusion that, while Muhammad is absolutely a egomaniacal, malignant narcissist and sociopath, that there really is a Satan, and Satan really is the voice of Allah. And one of the reasons I came to that is that throughout the Quran, Muhammad is demeaned. It's the whiplash thing with Satan. He's the greatest, and you must obey him. And then Allah says, but compared to me, he's meaningless. He's a piece of shit. He has no ability. He's not a prophet. And I just as soon kill him. So it is that dichotomy. And then the Quran's single most repetitive theme is what I call the never-ending argument, where everybody that actually knew Muhammad, his own family, recognized that he was demon-possessed, he was a madman, that he was plagiarizing the whole Quran thing, and that he was maniacal. And that's them calling him that, and those are the people who knew him best, is the single most repeated theme throughout the Quran, some 500 iterations of it. And Allah never once says, no, he's a prophet. Never once. And so the very demeaning treatment of Muhammad throughout the Quran, and Allah's constant indulgences, where it's okay that you commit pedophilia, it's okay that you commit incest, it's okay that you commit rape, it's okay that you torture your own kin. I came to the conclusion that Allah actually is a separate spirit, and that Allah hated Muhammad as much as he hates Trump, as much as he hates Paul. He has no respect for any humans, and just used those because he has a type, and they're his type.
Yeah, and you throw in the obligation thing that Satan, hey, Muhammad didn't get it right the first time, so it's this what we need the second time. Whatever we say comes out of our mouth is the newest, is better than the one before it, right? So I mean, just like Trump, it's confabulation.
The things you can say absolutely unequivocally about the Quran is that Allah is not a god. Absolutely unequivocally, Allah is not a god. Doesn't even approach divine status. Muhammad was not a prophet. Muhammad is probably the worst person who ever lived. Pedophile, rapist, incestuous, a mass murderer, lying thug, sadistic, slave trader, human trafficker. He was the worst person who ever lived. And Allah is the worst attempt at a god ever. The Quran is easily the dumbest book ever written.
Dumbest.
It is, by any standard, it's hugely plagiarized. It's twisted. It's a jumbled mess. There is no moral teaching in it at all, but it's grossly immoral. It's a death cult. It is sadistic throughout. It is, by any measure, the worst book ever written. It's bastardized Hebrew. The grammar is screwed up. The vocabulary is screwed up. The entire thing, and it's jumbled together like you took surahs and a hurricane went over a junkyard, and wherever the pieces fell, that's how we're going to assemble this thing. No chronological order, no context. It's by any standard, it's the worst book ever written, and it's look at the consequence. 250 million people dead because of this religion. The slave trade as a result of it, plundering the earth, the colonization and victimization of huge swaths of the world, responsible for 95% of terrorism, 95% of female genital mutilation, 95% of the slave trade even today.
Billions. Well, even the Muslims themselves are slaves to Allah. So, I mean, if
They
you're
are.
a Muslim, you're a slave. So it's
Slave,
yeah.
correct. So anyway, it's
Well-
I've become convinced that Allah actually is Satan, and that Satan did have a voice in the Quran, although the vast majority of the Quran is either Qusay's pagan rock god scheme that Muhammad stole, or it's Talmud recitals that Muhammad bought from the rabbis.
Yeah, that's the key. Without that, there wouldn't be any Islam. But Muhammad marketed it pretty well. Given his warriors the ability to keep what the cut of it. I mean, he produced the most successful terrorist organization the world's ever seen.
I'm not sure that's the case, Roger. During Muhammad's lifetime, he was nothing but a small-time thug, and he was a small-time thug in the most backward place on earth. Arabia, where he was a thug, was a place where the world just avoided. The Persians never went there, the Romans never went there, the Greeks never went there. It was an ocean of sand and death, and nobody went there. And so they were completely ignorant. They were illiterate. The only place where Islam could have been believed. It was that stupid of a religion. So when your success is with a few hundred nincompoops, that's really not much of a success. What happened is that Muhammad would have to die for Abu Bakr in particular and Uthman, who were savages. It was Abu Bakr who gave his 6-year-old daughter to a 66-year-old Muhammad to molest, and Uthman was the most vicious of the Muslims. Those two men took the lie of Muhammad without the Quran, because the Quran wouldn't be written for another 100 years. They took the lie of Muhammad. They forced it on all Arabia. They fought. They had the war because Arabia was not an armed place. So the Arabs didn't have weapons. They didn't have an army. So they were easy to conquer. And so it was a gang of a few hundred savages against unarmed Arabs, and they fought the war. It's called the War of Compulsion, compelling every Arab to become a Muslim. And then they happened to just fall into a place where the world had worn itself out, that the Romans had fought the Persians to the point that they had both essentially given up. Their armies were bludgeoned, their resources were drained. And so Islam comes in the midst of this, and they attack India, which was on very tough times. They kill 80 million Indians. They conquer a weakened Persia. And then from there, they went all the way to Africa, and they were savages for 1,000 years. And what they did is they produced nothing, but they stole everything. So between plundering people and the slave trade, and then motivating warriors through rape, they managed to build a more formidable force based upon plunder and the slave trade. And they ended up with more weapons and more horses and more camels and more spears. And they continued to be ruthless for 1,000 years. But that ruthlessness really had nothing to do with Muhammad, because even his hadith wasn't known and wasn't written. It wouldn't be written for 300 years after his death. And the Quran wouldn't be written for 100 years after his death. So when Muslims were conquering the world, it was not for Islam. There was no Quran. And they didn't want you to convert. That at that time, it was not convert or die. They wanted to plunder you. They were out there not to turn the world into Muslims and give them a Quran, because there was no Quran. They were there to plunder them and to enslave them. And so this is the consequence of Islam. And the world is so ignorant of it that it continues to die as a result of it.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I mean, Arabia is a place where no one goes. It's this vacuum of people, because where does Yahweh take his Israelites? Let's go out to the wilderness where there's nobody else around. You won't have any religious distractions, and we'll talk, right?
Correct.
Where does Moshe flee to, right? Where do we go back to when we're going to wander for 40 years and I'm going to knock a few of you guys off that were done, right? I mean, it's
right. A lifeless place where they have no interference. Yes. Yeah. No one's there. No one.
Ever. Yeah. It's always been a crap hole. I mean, for 4,000 years, it's always been a shithole.
Oh, what a piece of shit. Taking this talking about a shithole. So what he's trying to do is to get Americans to hate Jews as much as he hates Jews. Now, mind you, he has gone public many times to explain that he is demon possessed. He has admitted that he is receiving large amounts of money from Qatar. He goes all over the Islamic world with Qurans, and he is their little puppet. So we know where his loyalties are. They're with Satan and with Islam. Not that that is redundant. I know I'm being verbose here. Excuse me. His loyalties are with Satan, and therefore with Islam. He wants you to believe that Israeli schools outlaw the plus sign because it is symbolic of, it looks too much like a Christian cross. Now, why don't you Google that? Why don't you check? And what you find is it's not true. Israeli secular schools use the plus sign in arithmetic like everybody else. He's flat out lying. He's lying to encourage people to hate Jews. He's a piece of shit liar. Are there schools in Israel and in America that don't use the plus sign and use something else? Yes. But they have nothing to do with Israel. They have all to do with the Haredi. And it's even then it's irrelevant, because guess what? The Haredi don't teach
math.
They don't teach math. They don't science. They don't teach language. So even then, it is a non-issue. So he's just too effing stupid and so vile. And it's just motivated entirely by hate of Jews, as Satan is.
Well, the other thing he does is he tries to correlate Israeli schools with not Taliban, Al-Qaeda schools, as if there is such a thing. Okay. But he says
there is no such thing as an Al-Qaeda school. There's
right,
never been
in this video.
He
says, in this video, he says that Al Qaeda is another group that doesn't use the plus symbol in their schools. Okay,
well, guess what? And because Al Qaeda never had schools. They had terrorist training camps, but even then, that was fluff. I mean, it was a recruitment tool. It wasn't actually a school. They weren't sitting down and saying, "Okay, we're going to learn math today and science, and then we'll learn language." And no, there was absolutely no school associated with Al Qaeda ever, or with the Taliban even. So no, he's got Trumpitis, where what he says has no correlation whatsoever to the truth. He's just a vile, hateful, small, little, wee-brained little man. It's hideous. Oh, by the way, Christianity and its damn cross are repulsive. This idea of parading around on the symbol of a dead god on a stick is revolting. First of all, it turns God into a man, and that's pretty demeaning. You're going to turn God into a man. I want to tell you, that is a demotion. And then you're going to say that men killed God. What kind of God is that? And then you're going to take the most torturous, painful form of death in human history, and you're going to affix your God to it, and you're going to parade around under the symbol of a tortured and dead God on a stick. And on top of all that, it was a lie because, well, God isn't a man. Men can't kill God. And Jews never crucified anybody. And Jesus never existed. And there's the reason that there is zero contemporaneous eyewitness reports by anybody, secular or religious, of said Jesus is because he never existed. And yet you want to demean and dehumanize Jews for the crime of crucifying your God-man when it has a 0% possibility of being true, and you've tortured people for 19 centuries, and then you have the audacity, like every conspiratorialist, to project your vileness on those people that you have tortured.
It is rather macabre to walk around with torture devices on your body as symbols.
Of course, but think of in every conspiratorial person with their blame the Jews is saying that Jews are perpetrating genocide against Goy, when it's the Goy that have perpetrated genocide against the Jews. They projected their own vileness on the people that they have subjugated and oppressed. It shows total ignorance, total irrationality, complete immorality. This is Tucker Carlson. This is Donald Trump. This is what these are, the influencers on X and on Facebook. This is how vile the world has become.
Ignorance is leading the parade.
Oh,
yeah. And Satan they trust. So here is an image of Gaza, and it says, "Do you think Israel went too far in its response to the October 7th attack?" Can you imagine asking that question?
He used the wrong picture, didn't he?
Yeah, Israel has isolated himself from the world. Israel has become the most hated country in the world. Israel is accused by almost every influencer in social media of genocide. Israel is accused of being an occupier. None of it's true, but all of it appears true because of what Israel did in Gaza. Yeah. And not only did they go too far, and 1,000 times too far, they never had any chance of success. There was never going to be a Gaza without Muslims. There would be no Gaza without Hamas. They were never going to kill everybody that participated in 10/7. They were never going to disarm Hamas. They would never gain control over the Gaza encampment again. Never. But by destroying it, by these kinds of pictures, they destroyed Israel. Israel can't exist isolated. And, you know, what Trump has had his vice president do over the last 2 months, which is to tell Israel that it is no longer in a position to have any requests of the Trump administration, nor any consideration of the Trump administration, because it's America that supplies Israel with its weapons and has become an annoyance. And because Israel isn't the quiet little vassal that he wants, and isn't a psychopath that is licking Trump's poopy ass, that Israel is being universally betrayed by J.D. Vance and betrayed by Trump, and like his memorandum of understanding with Iran was checkmate for Israel. And so with their only ally, the ally that supplies most of their weapons, where J.D. Vance says, you can't just go off and use our weapons to go kill anybody you want to. You're out of control, and we're not going to tolerate this anymore. So with the Trump administration moving to the Godfather role of, you want our protection, you want our weapons, you pay us. And even then, you're paying for something that has no value. But you're going to pay us, and you're going to kiss our ass, or we won't even tolerate you. And if we tell you to jump and engage in a stupid, immoral, counterproductive war, you supply men and women to go die in that war. And you reimburse us for it, and you give us the credibility of you joining us in that war, or else. Or else is also being directed at Israel. And Israelis aren't smart enough to figure it out yet. They've been betrayed. And they caused it largely because of this. And they were played into it. The Marxists and Muslims throughout Europe and America were on the streets protesting Israeli genocide days after 10/7, before Israel even responded.
Yeah. And they're going to trade it all for a promise of protection, a promise of hey, Muslims, we won't kill you, and a promise from the confabulator in chief Hasatan that we're going to protect you. That's all they're going to trade.
Yeah.
This.
Well, the Muslims are not going to sign. Yeah, the Muslims are not going to sign a document that says they're not going to kill Jews because they wouldn't be Muslims anymore. But the United States will promise to protect Israel once Israel forfeits its heart for the Fakistinian state. And of course, that will be worth as much as it was worth to the Arab fiefdoms of Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar. Be as valuable as it is to South Korea at the moment.
It's like that. Just like that photograph there is very valuable to the Muslims. And look and see what Israel did. Israel, the Muslims were looking for a knee-jerk reaction, and they got it.
Yeah, of course. And Israel did when 10/7 happened that morning, I wrote the open letter to Israel, and in it I told Israel that you need now to document every single crime scene. You need to photograph every bit of it, no filters, and then after you've photographed all of it and you've described all of it, every story is put online with all graphic pictures. And not only do you show every aspect of what happened, and additionally you reveal the full autopsy report of every victim, all 1,250 plus the 250 that were kidnapped. You also celebrate their lives and do right next to that. This is their life prior to that. And then if you know who the Muslims were that perpetrated it, you have the third one of this is the a-hole that did this to this person. That was the only way you were going to win the war of public opinion, which in today is more important than the kinetic war on the ground. And they didn't do it. And the second is you've got to get Hamas and Palestinian out of your mouth. They're irrelevant. It's Islam. And you need to understand Islam. You need to go read Prophet of Doom and Now Goddamn Religion, so that you know who your enemy is and how the 10/7 attack was absolutely no different than the attack on Kabar, which is why Muslims continue to chant Yahud, Yahud, Kabar, Kabar. Kabar, Yahud, Kabar. And it was Sinwar's attempt of the 10/7 attack. It had a single purpose. It was to irritate Israelis to the extent that they could be played into the destruction of Gaza, because if they destroyed Gaza, it would turn the world against them, and there would be a Fakistinian state, not something that the Muslims want, but it's something that they can use to make Israel more vulnerable and then destroy Israel, which is what they do want. And Israel played right into it.
Yeah, it's Beth El Shoshana, right? I'm presuming they're Jewish here, that this is the house of
Yes.
God and the lilies, right? And
Yes.
And this is the picture that they show. Did Israel, did it go too far? I mean, Israel is a house divided here. The picture she should have shown is a Beavis picture. Remember that these animals took women and children and killed them. The pictures of the babies that were cut open and the nurseries with blood on the walls and stuff like that.
Right. That's
Did
what they need to
Israel
show.
go too far? Yeah. No.
Yeah. Then that's exactly what they need to show. Beth, by the way, is daughter. So it's a daughter of El, and Shoshana is Lily, and the Lily points to two individuals, Dod and Yada. That's why they're on the columns, as their names and titles are on those two columns of God's home. But that's pretty damn good. You are progressing in your Hebrew. I'm impressed.
A little bit.
So, this is a woman, and she is all in her fancy robes that make her look more like royalty. So she's all fancy. She's even got her Dagon hat on. Isn't that? Oh, I'm clapping. I got my Dagon hat on. Isn't this great? So, and the response is the church is not free to change what Christ Himself established. There was no Christ. There just was no Christ. That whole thing is a complete and utter lie. And so this is the whole essay on Jesus only picked men, and therefore, which by the way, even the gospel Jesus didn't only pick men, and so the church must only have men. But of course, there's no mention of a church anywhere in the Christian New Testament. There's only two mentions of a Christian. The whole concept of a Christ is the most pathetic lie ever. The way that Eusebius added it to the text 300 years after the fact. Every bit of this is lies piled on top of lies. So I'm tell you, Holy See. The Catholic Church is not a see, and holy means diseased in Hebrew. So you are really, really, really lost. And your promotion of this sick religion that stole everything from God and His people. You stole His beloved Son. You stole the Messiah. You stole the former and returning King. You stole the promises that God made to them to create your God-forsaken, goddamn religion. The consequence of that is going to be an eternity in hell. You can't steal from God and His beloved Son and not expect hell. The actual Messiah is Dod. He is the chosen one. He is the firstborn of God. He is the Son of God. He is the one who fulfilled Pesach by being crucified. Jesus is nothing but a counterfeit.
When I look at that photograph, what I see is it's a diseased, weeping sore of religion. In every sense, it's just gross.
Yes, it is. It's a plague. That's why 666 years before Paul wrote his first letter through the prophet Habakkuk, specifically said that Paul is the plague of death.
They're just mad because only boys can play religious dress up, I guess. As it the second they have a girl.
And so they're condemning I guess this would be an Anglican church in England. They're condemning the Anglicans for being bad Christians because they have a woman that is ordained. And the whole thing is just a complete farce. The only reason there's an Anglican church is because there was a king that wanted to divorce and as opposed to kill his wife, he actually just wanted to divorce his wife. And the Pope said no. And he says, okay, well, then I'm going to be the head of my own religion, just like you're the head of your religion. So we created the Anglican Church. That's the whole story. Yeah, the mythical beast of the angels. And of course, there is no angel. You look at the Hebrew text, there is a malach. And when it comes to a malach, the Hebrew word means messenger. It was replaced by, in a translation of the, when they tried to corrupt and steal the prophets of Yahweh for the Christian religion, they were writing in Greek. And so the Greek word for messenger is Agelos, and so that was transliterated into English as angel. And if you don't know that, then you're a fool. Now, as it relates to malak, which is the term that Yahweh uses for messenger, 50% of them are from heaven and are spiritual beings, and 50% of them are men. And while a man can be a messenger and not be doing anything that has anything to do with God, God specifically says that Dode, for example, is a malak of his, and there are amongst the many titles in the Symphony of Shims for the Nakar, malak happens to also be one of them. Now, Joseph Smith was a con artist, and he lied about the angel giving him a message, these plates, because he was supposed to be such a good translator of ancient texts. He couldn't translate any ancient text, and of course he could never demonstrate that he ever had access of these plates, and you're not going to put the Book of Mormon on a plate. So the whole thing was just a made-up lie, and of course the stuff that's in the Book of Mormon is historically invalid, and archaeology disproves it, and as does common sense. And when he was challenged on it, he said he lost the plate, and then he was given another copy that he could translate. And then when he was challenged on but he lost that one too. And then when he was challenged on his ability to translate ancient texts, he was shown something from the Book of the Dead before the Rosetta Stone was found, and he made it about Abraham and the Jews coming over to America, and it was actually an incantation from the Book of the Dead. He was proven to be false every which way, and yet there's still fools that are Mormons. In Islam, Muhammad claimed that it was a spirit that gave him the message in that cave in Ramadan, and that messenger has subsequently been labeled Allah, even though Allah's name actually doesn't appear as Allah anywhere in the Quran. And he was out at the time doing pagan religious practices during the month of Ramadan. Ramadan had all to do with the pagan religion of the rock pile of the Kaaba long before Muhammad turned it into an Islamic rite. And that spirit beat the living crap out of him, and the spirit was stupid. It told an illiterate man to read twice, and it told him that the Quran was written by the pen. And if the Quran had already been written, then it could not have been about Muhammad's life, and it couldn't have been centered on a backwater town in Arabia, and it couldn't be filled with abrogation. The whole thing is utter nonsense. And then it concludes by saying that this spirit created man from coagulated blood. Now, blood is a product of what men create, as opposed to within their bodies, they are not created from coagulated blood. Wrong about everything. And this is the opening line of the Quran. It is utter nonsense. Now, this is the line from Paul in Galatians, that even if a angel from heaven should preach to you, so that would be a messenger. So a messenger from heaven should preach to you a gospel contrary to what he has preached to you, a curse be on him. He's cursing a messenger from God in heaven if God contradicts his gospel. Now, to have that in your book and believe that Paul spoke for God, you either have to be ignorant, irrational, or you just don't give a shit. Take your pick. Ignorant, irrational, or you don't give a shit. But that is not believable. It's not only not rational, it's not even believable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot of them that I know were going along to get along. They don't care. They're just showing up because everybody else they know shows up. If they don't show up, hey, where were you? How come you didn't show up? Peer pressure.
Yeah, it's pathetic that a religion this obviously false garners the support of 2.5 billion people. That just shows you how stupid people can be. And another 2 billion people are religion even dumber than Christianity and Islam. And then you have another billion people that are in a religion as dumb as those two and Hinduism. And then you have another billion people in a religion that man is God and Marxism that has failed every place it's been tried. And then you get another billion people that believe in conspiracy. I mean, it's 95% of the world.
Not much left after all that.
Not much left.
Right.
It's why it's slim pickings for the truth.
Mhm.
Every once in a while, Mormons will stop by the house early on a weekend morning, and when I look out the window and see them, it's obvious who they are. I get a smile on my face, and I get my cards from Shannon, and I head for the door.
Yeah, well, okay, yeah, sit down. Let's talk about Yahweh. You know who Yahweh is, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, they're like,
Okay.
no.
Yeah. And you've heard about DNA, huh? Yeah. So does Mormonism and the Book of Mormon say that you're the Latter-day Saints because Jews got on a big ship and that the Native Americans were Jews? Doesn't say that. You know that the DNA of the Native Americans matches the DNA of those in Eastern Russia and Mongolia during the last ice age, because that's when they walked over, and it's not Jewish. You know that, don't you? You know the Quran talks about horses being here in the Americas, and no, there's no evidence of that. And it goes on and on. I mean, you just you spin their little heads around and, talk about Joseph Smith, as I said, when he was once tested on his proficiency and ancient script translations, misquoted the Book of the Dead and the Egyptian religion. And of course, he lost twice his tablets, and a Book of Mormon won't fit on a tablet. Unless we're talking about a tablet like in the sense of an Apple tablet. But,
I get them so from Lux, they don't know what to say. They just turn around and walk away.
oh yeah, and just unbelievably stupid. Yeah, look at that. And of course, it got worse because Spain, Portugal, much of going all the way up into Europe, and it goes further down into Africa, and it goes into the eastern part of China. There, this is the blood that was lost in the world as these Arabians came out of that one little space where Muhammad fooled the dumbest people on earth and motivated them with the dumbest idea ever, most viciously stupid, carnal, piece of shit idea ever, that God wanted everyone to die killing for him, and that those who die killing for him would be rewarded with virgins in paradise. That utterly stupid idea caused the people that lived in these places to be murdered, enslaved, plundered, and still subjugated today.
Blood red.
Blood red. And of course, look how much further it actually went than even the map here. There's 1,000 years of carnage. And it wasn't 170 million. It was 200 million in the first 100 years of Islam, and another 50 million since then. It's 250 million. And colonialization is really too kind a word for what they did. Genocide, apartheid. And still in Islamic countries, if you're not a Muslim, you're subject to apartheid. And it's the worst apartheid in the history of the world. There is no more demeaning apartheid than is perpetrated by Islamic majority countries on non-Muslims.
Well, what was the one you posted today? They cut that kid up and fed him to dogs.
Yeah, they did. In Egypt.
Egypt.
Yep. Yeah. Here's Egypt. This is a Copt, actually citing from the Quran and Hadith. Saying things like that either you convert to Islam or you pay the jizya, and that's the deal. The jizya is a tax so egregious that it will steal everything that you have. that you become nothing but a slave to the Muslim. And it's worse than just paying the jizya. And if you don't convert to Islam now in an Islamic country, you can't own property, you can't own a business, you can't look at a Muslim in the eye, you have no legal rights. They can beat you and you can't even touch them. It is the worst form of apartheid ever conceived. And so they have that, and then they have others that you must kill for Allah. There's citations out of the Quran and the Hadith, and the person had their business shut down and was arrested for inflammatory speech, and yet the inflammatory speech came right out of the Quran and Hadith.
Is there any escape for people that are caught in that situation? That can they actually, if they don't want to be there anymore, they're non-Muslim, can they leave, or are they required to stay?
No, because they wouldn't have a passport.
Yeah, where do you go?
Where do you,
It's
oh,
I mean, it's
they
not
don't
like you
have
can just
passport.
walk
away.
Yeah, and they don't have any money. They have any money.
Mhm.
And they don't have a passport, so they can't get on an airplane. No, there's nothing they can do.
So they're a permanent lower class, basically,
Mhm.
They're a permanent slave class.
slave class.
Okay, this is interesting. Musk presents himself as the great engineer and the great inventor, but the truth is that PayPal, which is how he made the money initially, was founded by Max Levchin, and it was actually funded by who's the slime bucket that got Trump elected in the first term, that was the primary financier of Facebook and of PayPal, that owns the defense company that is Plantair is his defense company.
Mhm.
He was the primary capital behind PayPal, primary capital behind Facebook as well, and so Elon Musk just fell into it. He was not the lead financier, and he certainly wasn't the inventor of PayPal. And then you go to Tesla, and everybody thinks that that Musk founded Tesla. No, it was Martin Eberhard and Mark Tamping. They founded it, and all Trump did, all Musk did. They're inseparable in my mind now. But all Musk did is lead the IPO, which means it wasn't his money; it was public money. But he set Tesla up for an IPO, and he finagled himself into the chairman's seat, and he made life so miserable for the founders of Tesla, they left. But he didn't. Didn't have any skin in the game on that. And right now, Tesla's nothing right now. I mean, Tesla's margins are falling. Their sales are plummeting around the world. They only have some sales in the United States because the United States has barred BYD and other Chinese imports, so they don't have to compete against them. But you have Ford and GM buying BYD cars to disassemble them, so they can see how far they're behind in manufacturing and technology. The CEO of Ford said, "We're 25 years behind where BYD is."
Wow.
Anyway, it's Tesla as a has-been, and he's all in on his Optimus robots because his original flagship car, the one that he didn't design, has been discontinued, and he can't give away the Cybertruck. And so then you go to SpaceX, and SpaceX is really the product of Tom Mueller is the engineer, and everything about SpaceX is a lie. It thrives because of defense contracts. It's SpaceX antennas that is in America's drones and missiles that are being used to kill Iranians and also to kill Russians. And it is SpaceX that is lying about having moon bases and colonizing Mars. Neither are going to happen. It's a complete and utter lie. And so Elon Musk is not the inventor. He is not the designer. He is a con man. He's a circus clown, is what he is.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. The person wants to say the world's 3 most important events. Then why isn't there a single recording of any of them?
Mhm.
If they're the world's most important events, and the world was, we're talking about 33 CE here now, between 1 BCE and 33 CE. At that point, the world was pretty adept at writing things down. Israel was the cross section of the world. It had literate Greeks in it, of course, lots and lots of Romans, and they were literate in Latin. And it had Babylonians who were literate in Aramaic. The Romans wrote everything down. They would tell you what the legions had for lunch. And yet you claim that these are the 3 most important events in human history, and there's not a single contemporaneous eyewitness to any of them. And this idea that a baby God was born is ludicrous. The idea that God was a man and that men killed God is ludicrous. And by the way, Romans never crucified anybody on the top of a mountain. Never. It was always along roadways. They don't put roadways on the top of mountains. It's ludicrous. And that's not the way that tombs work. And there is no indication that a body was put into a tomb, much less that a tomb is empty. No evidence at all of these things. And oh, by the way, if you want him to have been prophesied, then he would have been the Passover lamb, which you want to claim, but you don't want to mention Passover. But the Passover lamb does not come back to life. In fact, the body of the Passover lamb has to be incinerated, which means there can be no bodily resurrection. And bodily resurrection is the stuff of the Egyptian religion, and it has never worked out for a single mummy. It didn't work out for your ungod either. And the first time that the name Jesus was ever mentioned was in the 17th century. And there is no prophecy of any kind about a coming Christ. None. So the whole thing is just a pile of lies. So not only not the 3 biggest things in history, but not even remotely. And by the way, Bethlehem isn't a mountaintop either. Bethlehem is where it's the house of bread. They grow barley and wheat, and Bethlehem, there are fields there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting that the 3 most important events, well, they're all counterfeits. And 2 out of 3 ain't bad, because I mean, Yashayahu speaks of Emmanuel. I don't know that he necessarily says Bethlehem, and then Dode very clearly in 22 and 88.
Yeah, he was clearly born in Bethlehem. That's why the Christian myth picks up, because it was Ruth and Boaz, and they were Mr. and Mrs. Bethlehem. And God says you're going to deliver the kinsman redeemer, and they're in Bethlehem. Figure it out. And she's called the Amma. I mean, it's not hard to figure out. As for crucifixion, it's Dode who wrote about his own crucifixion. He even timed it. He said it's going to happen in 33 CE. He gave us the exact date that it would occur, and it is to fulfill Passover. But his body is what was sacrificed, and his body was incinerated that night in accordance with the Torah. So it's nothing.
No need
but,
for the Rolling Stones.
3 counterfeits. Yeah, nothing but counterfeits.
Oh, here's this dude.
Yeah, this is your guy with all of the military memorabilia. He is absolutely right. Now, he wants to talk about the fact that he is a 24-year colonel, veteran, and a colonel in the U.S. military. I guess he's a major. I'm sorry, a major retired. That's a nobody. 24 years in a major. That's not very good there, pal. But nevertheless, he wants to say that what Trump's doing in the military is wrong, and that Trump is telling the military that they're going to fight in America. And when a general was recently asked by Congress if you were ordered by Trump to deploy troops in America to kill Trump's designated enemies, what would you do? And he said, I'd follow the orders. We know that because he spoke in front of 800 flag officers and said he was going to ask them to do that very thing, and only 8 of them resigned. 1%.
Mhm.
So the U.S. military is corrupt from top to bottom. They're co-conspirators in the destruction of America. They're committing war crimes worldwide. They're going to be deployed in America, just as it happened with the Third Reich. But you don't gain credibility in this and pretending that your service was somehow noble and that the 13 men's names that you say you have tattooed on your back sacrificed their lives for something else. No, they sacrificed their lives for nothing. They lost their lives for nothing. They were stupid to have enlisted. And looking at your age, you were deployed in Desert Storm, and all that did was make a bad situation worse. You were lied to. Everything that you were told was a lie. Everything. So you went off and killed people to make a bad situation worse. And every aspect of it was a lie.
And he confirms that. He confirms that everything that, there was no weapons of mass destruction and things, and he wants to talk about the Constitution. Throw that out, and he talks about his brothers. I manned a foxhole, I manned a post, and he did it for my brothers.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
For my brothers. And so, but your other mercenaries, you guys survived a crappy thing. You were conned and you survived it. Tell people that.
Yeah, you were lied to. You were deployed doing something that was harmful to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And all you ought to do now is apologize that you were conned and you were used in a way that made a bad situation worse. And rather than denouncing the U.S. military, you're putting it up on your wall as if your whole life is defined by that experience that was a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
It's disturbing. I've got two sons in the military, trying to get them out. One of them's a medical technician in an Army hospital. The other one pushes paper in a National Guard office. But they both saw Iran, and the older one saw Iran and Afghanistan. He was changed when he came back. He was changed when he got out of basic training. He was changed when he got out of Ranger School. Every step along the way, they change you.
Yep.
Your personality
You lost
changes.
Part of your son. You lost part of your son with every step along the way.
But it's just,
the way they're indoctrinated and they're told to believe this pile of lies on how wonderful the military is, how it is the bastion of freedom, how they are the head of the spear, and it's all a lie. It's nothing but propaganda. And there isn't a single situation where the U.S. military has defended American liberty. It forced for evil and destruction and death around the world and has been for a long, long time. And it is deployed, making bad situations worse. What happened in Afghanistan is an utter shame. And it was obvious the moment that troops were deployed there that all they would do is make a bad situation much worse. The same thing is true with Iraq. Same thing is true with Libya. Same thing is true with Sudan and Somalia and Syria and Iran and with Ukraine. Every place you look, it's making a bad situation worse. Look at Vietnam, another bad situation worse. And yet we don't learn. I'm sorry that your sons made that choice. I'm glad at least they're not deployed overseas, but it is they're really an evil scheme, and there's this propensity to re-up,
correct,
to sign up again, and that's
I know they bribe you. They bribe you. Another 5 years we'll give you $20,000. It's a gang mentality. It really is.
It is gang mentality, the worst of men.
What organization in the world has 22 of its members a day commit suicide and think it's doing, a positive thing when they get out? I mean, what?
Yeah, 22 a day, and that's just on the states that keep track of it.
Right.
It's probably closer to 50. It's probably closer to 50 a day commit suicide, and a huge percentage. The vast majority are on mind-altering drugs, claiming they suffer from post-traumatic stress, and they are conning the system both out of money and out of drugs to cope with their miserable lives.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's quite the diaper bag. I mean, imagine the number of diapers and the size of the butt wipes that you have to have, or that
Bigger
that you
butts,
could
bigger
actually
wipes.
think that wiping a man's butt and providing his diapers was a good thing to do with your life. But
Mm.
she's everywhere with it. She has become, of course, the head tweeter, and well, that's an important position. In fact, I think it's based on the time that he spends with her. It is the top position in the Trump administration now, is the head tweeter.
Mhm. Yeah,
It's,
it used to be
it
chief of
ranks
staff.
way
Used-
ahead of vice president and secretary of state or
Mhm.
secretary of war. And certainly it was way ahead of the press secretary. When he had a choice of, do I spend time with and protect the press secretary or the head tweeter, the head tweeter got the nod.
Yeah, it used to be chief of staff. Chief of staff was the gatekeeper, the hinge to power of the presidency, right? I mean, you talk about the chiefs of staffs of
Yeah.
Obama and of course Clinton, and you know these people that were and now
They
it's
were
the
the
tweeter.
gatekeepers.
It's the lady that carries
Now it's
the diaper bag,
The
right?
diaper bag, the head tweeter.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm surprised somebody hasn't memed that bag, into like into more important than the football, than the briefcase with the
more
codes or
important than
whatever,
football. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
it's-
head tweeter with her, and I'm surprised she's not called the head tweeter. And that a lot of people are using my term. I think it was the first to say it, that she is the Ava Braun of Der Fuhrer, and I think I'm the first person to actually coin that term. But the head tweeter, I think, is something that will emerge as well. But if you want to brand the diaper bag, go right ahead. Trump's tush.
It's funny. A few days ago, I saw a post somewhere, but it was a picture of Trump from behind. He had this big square box under his pants.
Oh, I know. Yeah, he did. I
Trump
saw
got
that picture.
butt
Too.
box.
He's
I don't
walking
know.
walking off a stage, and the back flap of his suit was sitting out almost perpendicular because the diapers are so full of shit that it just
could have been
you could
double
put
bagged.
you could have put a tray table on it. It could be double bagged, for all I know. But yeah, he's incontinent.
I didn't even want to jump.
And that's one of his better attributes, that he's incontinent.
Yeah, right.
Oh my, Kirshner. So Kirshner flies overseas, and he is responsible for negotiating 5 hours with with Hamas. Imagine that. You fly to Egypt, and of course you can meet with Hamas in Egypt because Egypt supports Hamas. And you spend 5 hours negotiating with Hamas so they would understand what you're trying to do. How in the world you spent 5 hours with Hamas? And so Netanyahu just scolds him and said, "What in the hell is wrong with you?" And while I'm no fan of Netanyahu, you have to wonder what it is about a man that would do that sort of thing. If you were to tell me, I want you to go and spend 5 hours with the Emir of Qatar or of UAE or of Mohammed of Saudi Arabia or the head of Hezbollah or Hamas, I'd tell you to go F yourself. No.
And does Hamas
not
have
going to do
money?
it,
I
but-
mean, Kushner goes to negotiate the bribes. I mean, right? I mean,
They
he's
got lots of money. Oh, they got lots of money.
okay.
Yeah, they're very, very, very well heeled in terms of money. Most of it comes from money. Comes from Qatar, from Iran, from the EU, and from the United States. Yeah, they're
Okay.
flush with money. Yeah, I heard his speech when he came afterwards, saying it's a win-win for Israel. All you have to do is read the Quran. Good Muslims never lay down their arms. The moment a good Muslim lays down their arms, then they become what the Quran calls a hypocrite. And Allah says that you must kill the peaceful Muslim hypocrites because they're frauds. And then I'm going to torture them forever in the hottest places in hell. So a Muslim can never lay down their arms. So what you're asking Hamas to do as an Islamic organization is forbidden in Islam. And you're so stupid you believe they're going to do that. And even at one point, he says, we may be successful in getting them to hand over some of their weapons. If they hand over some of their weapons, then it is strictly a ruse to have you spend lots of money and rebuild Gaza while they pick up the rest of their weapons and still control Gaza. There is a 0% possibility that you're going to get out of Gaza, and so long as Gaza is Islamic, Hamas is going to be the expression of it. So this whole thing is, and he goes on, we're going to rebuild Gaza. Why? Why? It's a demolition zone. Why would you rebuild Gaza? For what? How much money? Who's going to pay for it? And what's the purpose? So that they can go and claim they're being occupied some more, and they can claim that they can go kill more Jews. There are 2.2 million Muslims that are citizens living in Israel, and there are 0 Jews living in Gaza. Do the math, figure it out. This is
it's a nice shot.
Vantage point is the city of David. This is the southern and lower edge of Zion, looking from the south to the north. That is the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the left, and you can see it's aligned with the Dome of the Rock. It is not aligned with today's Mecca, and the Dome of the Rock is very close to where the first and second temple stood. You can see how it is backed up to the western side, so the back of it would be on the western side, and then you would have the altar, the portico, and all of these things to the eastern side, facing the Mount of Olives. Right of that picture is the Mount of Olives, due east of the Temple Mount. The size of that mount and the wall was created by Herod. It bears very little resemblance to what was originally there and designed by Dode and then built by Solomon. I can tell you for certain that when Israel gained control of Jerusalem in the 1967 war, that the first act should have been to destroy Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. While Jordan was in control of Jerusalem, there was barbed wire everywhere prior to between 1948 and 1967, where not a single Jew was allowed even into the old city. And total apartheid in that regard. And so to pay them back for that, and then for trying to annihilate all Jews in 1948 and 1967, the only intelligent move was to remove those 2 scars. And they had the wherewithal to do it, and they didn't do it. It was one of the great crimes ever perpetrated by Jews. It showed no courage and no character. And then on top of all that, they gave the Temple Mount back to the control of Jordan. An absolute disgrace that what they had done. And part of it, too, is that the leadership of Israel thought they were fighting Arabs as opposed to Muslims, and they've been lost in that regard from the beginning. Now, we are less than 4 years away from the arrival of the 2 witnesses. Before their arrival, Yahweh has promised that he will remove both of those 2 buildings. They will be gone. And all religious scars will be gone as well. And where the temple that was built by Solomon once stood, the tent of the restoring witness the tabernacle will be placed, and the Aaron Bareth will be retrieved, and it will be placed inside, and the 2 tablets of stone will be held up so that they can be read, because they are overwhelmingly anti-religious. And that's going to be an entirely different situation. There are going to be the supporters of the Nakar who will be actively engaged along the walls I think the vast majority of it is going to be facing west above what's called the Western Wall initially, and then Teruah will be fulfilled east of where the tent of the Restoring Witness will be established, which is to the right of where the Dome of the Rock presently stands. That's kind of the lay of the land and what's going to occur there. I've just finished now doing a complete assessment of Mamlaka, which is Malak with the hay at the end of it, to deduce the actual meaning of the word and why it is said that God's people ought to act and engage in support of the Malaka during 6 days every week, and that on the seventh day they can benefit from what he has done, but they are not to do his work. There are two people that bear that title, and on the Shabbat, it is their responsibility for fulfilling those obligations. This is not Christianity where you're told to pick up your cross and be tortured along with me. That is not the case. What they do on the Shabbat is their choice. It's only two people that are ever sacrificed. It's only their physical bodies, not their souls. And they do their work on the Shabbat. Everything is fulfilled on the Shabbat. And it says, don't engage and try to do their work on the Shabbat. But the other 6 days a week, you ought to be supporting them. You ought to be working in accompaniment of them and trying to be there and advance what it is that they're doing. So it says that God's overall plan is 6 days a week. His people support the Mamlaka, and that 1 day a week on the Shabbat, that's the day that they are responsible. That means that they do their best work on the Shabbat. And went and analyzed every letter that comprises that word and everything we know about the word. The M is waves on the sea. So he's a man from the sea, has the life-giving and cleansing properties of water. He makes waves and stirs things up. I know a fellow like that. The Lamed is that he is a leader. He is a shepherd. He guides God's flock. He nurtures them. He protects them. And he serves God's flock in that way. No one of those two. The Aleph is a bull and a ram. And so those are the two people who fulfill the role of the Malaka. It's a bull and a ram. They are the two individuals that are sacrificed during the Moedim, which is why, and they're sacrificed both on Shabbat. And then the last two letters, you have the Kaf, which is an open hand, which means they're offering you a gift. Accept the gift that they're offering. Here, take it. It's yours. And then the last letter is tells you that this messenger, it's a man. It's one standing up, observant, reaching up, actively engaged on behalf of God. That is the Malaka. And that's the person that God's saying to his people, 6 days a week, support, actively engage on behalf of that person, whether it's Dod or Yada. And 1 day a week, it's they have to do their thing. They volunteered to do this. This is the thing they've agreed to do. It only happens on the Shabbat, very important Shabbat is when it occurs. And recognize that, benefit from it. It even begins with Zakar. Recall the importance of the most memorable of men. So that it's coming together beautifully. And, it says that on the Shabbat, it is the responsibility of the female or male offspring of the men who are co-workers or of the Amma to to do the work of the Malacca. It's their job.
Mhm.
It's really a beautiful presentation. It's coming together so well. I'm so glad I'm rewriting Written in Stone. I'm
And
just
how
hoping it
far
stays
we've
under-
come with the how far we've come with the ending, you know? I mean, because it
Yes,
wasn't
we have.
5-6 years ago that it was,
Right.
the Ruach Kodesh that was doing all
Right.
these things on,
Right.
I mean, and
Right. But
now
it
it's we understand the
and it should have been so obvious. The thing that really just grabbed me is that the term Adama Para.
Mhm.
Both have
Mhm.
the ending at the end. Both have a person, a man, standing up, reaching up to God, and so you look at that and you say, well, the Adama is a man who is bloody red, and the Para is a bull who is a man, and then you
Mhm.
have the Etza, it's a man who is a tree, and you look at each of these and you realize there's a common theme in all of them. By putting the person, the ha ending, which is the man standing up and reaching up to God at the end of these words, God is saying that this title that I'm using to describe them is describing a man in this role.
Mhm.
And the same thing is true with Malacca. Yeah, how far we've come. It is not only a man doing these things, but it's the more complete understanding of what is being conveyed here. So,
Mhm.
for example, since 50% of the time a Malak is from heaven and is a spiritual being, and 50% of the time it's a man, many of those serving God. If you're going to have a more complete understanding of that, you're going to take the masculine noun and incorporate the feminine title to blend both together, and you'll have now a man who is spiritually empowered to convey the message of God.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's how much we're able to learn.
That's really the beauty of Paleo Hebrew. It just
It
shows
is.
word pictures with every letter.
It does. It's such a marvelous tool, and there's the legacy, of course, in it, and even in modern Hebrew script, because the letters are still describe that original thing. A Beth is still a home. A pay is still a mouth. An ain is still an eye. Yod is still a hand. So the hay still means an observant man. So we have the cough is still the palm of a hand. So we have in the names of the letters, even in modern Hebrew, the legacy to the original drawings going all the way back in time.
It's beautiful.
So, yeah, it's beautiful. Things that we can learn. All right. Well, we've reached the 2-hour point. I'm sure I've posted a whole lot more than just these, but we never do get all the way through them. I'm a little exuberant on my posting, but it's fun to do this program. I was talking to Leah. She says, you just we're watching this one from yesterday last night. She says, how in the world can anybody just sit down and no matter what the visual image is, they could talk. Or you just sit down and talk for hours. You're never tongue-tied. You're never looking for something to say. And you always seem like you could go on another half an hour on every one of these posts.
Mhm.
Who is like that? How in the world do you do that? And, it's really the fun of being prepared and equipped after all of this time to see something and know what it means to people. I can look at the Temple Mount. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. Now, we could talk another hour
Mhm.
about how those two scars ended up on that Temple Mount and how they're actually an embarrassment to Islam as opposed to a holy thing for Islam. So yeah, it's you spend 25 years preparing, you should be able to say something intelligent about most anything you see, including dispelling the myths of Christianity, dispelling the myths of Islam, dispelling the myths of Marxism, dispelling the myths of the MAGA. Been there, done that. Oh, I would have loved to. The thing I would have liked to have done. Maybe we can get it. If you go down, there's a man, kind of almost whitish hair, very short hair, and he's singing the Russian national anthem. at the
Oh.
return of the girls the gymnasts. There, this is it. I would like you to play this, and the reason I want you to play this is that, I've had the good fortune of traveling around the world. I've been in over 150 countries. I was in Russia multiple times when it was under the control of communists, and what I learned is how evil collectivized government is, and communism is, socialism, Marxism, and how they turn men into gods, and how depressing it is on the society. No freedoms, no prosperity, and no access to information, no free will. And yet the people, and I went all the way to Siberia. The Orient Express took it all the way across the continent, even went into Ulaanbaatar and into outer Mongolia, and was in Leningrad back in the time it was still Leningrad. And I traveled with Russians the entire time. And people were wonderful. They were so much nicer, the people, than the people I had met in Europe or in Asia. Really genuinely nice people under a horrible system. That system is since gone from Russia, but we find it in the United States. The Democratic Party has become entirely Marxist, and they run most local governments, and they have destroyed capitalism in the United States. And so that Marxism that was so terrible in Russia now exists here, but it doesn't exist in Russia. And yet Russia is constantly presented as the most the ultimate boogeyman of the world, when it's Europe that starts these wars and the United States that is the ultimate warmonger. And so there was a European Games where the Russians were finally allowed to compete again, and when they competed, they won virtually everything, and they tried to keep the world's best gymnast out, wouldn't even allow her to. There was anomalies with her housing, which of course was arranged by the Russians. And like everybody else, they just wouldn't let her in. And finally they did. And she ended up arriving hours before the competition and still won everything. But they wouldn't allow them to play their national anthem. They wouldn't allow them to be honored by their flag, because the Europeans are just obnoxious. They're hateful slime.
It's petty. It's petty shit.
Petty. And so they get back, and this man breaks out with the Russian national anthem. And I think the Russian national anthem happens to be the most beautiful national anthem in the world. I know it quite well, and I'm not a fan of nationhood, but I love music, and I think this is the most beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of music, and it brought tears to my eyes to think of these girls going off and being so mistreated, and yet being so gifted and at their sport, and then not being able to have the distinction of being honored. Well, those who were won other awards would walk up there with their flags and drape themselves around their flags and have political protests, and the Russians couldn't do anything. They were just petty petty harassment. And they walk back. They get off the airplane, and this is what they hear. I think it's beautiful. So let's play a little bit of this. It's marvelous.
Россия священная наша держава, Россия любимая наша страна, могучая воля, великая слава, твое достояние на все времена. Славься, Отечество наше свободное, братских народов союз вековой, предками данная мудрость народная. Славься, страна, мы гордимся тобой, от южных морей до полярного края. Скинулись наши леса.
Okay, that's beautiful. To remind people, I've been all across this country. I traveled all across it when it was under the control of communists, and I saw communists turn men into gods and oppress the people. And yet I met the average Russians every day, month after month. And I've been back after it became a capitalistic country. It was no longer controlled by Russia. And at the same time, I've watched America become a Marxist country. And it is a beautiful land. And well, people collectively typically are rotten to the core, and that's what I experienced mostly in Europe, which I'll never go back to Europe. It's what I expected to experience mostly in Japan and Korea. I'll never go back to those places. But Russia was different. People were genuinely kind. And you could see they longed to know. And to see America choose to overturn the government in Kiev and then arm it to go kill Russians, and then to see 80% of America condemn Russia when it's America's war, and to see Russia try to defend itself and millions of people die. It's sad to me. So I just wanted you to see the other side. There is beauty in this world, and yes, I know that Putin does lots of stupid stuff, but I dare you to find a leader that is more honest, better informed, more in control of himself than Putin. I dare you. Tell me one. I'm all ears, please. Who is? Who? Got one?
Right. One that doesn't have to act like a politician, because everywhere else they go, they have to act like a politician. Where
Yeah, but there is nobody that even comes close to that man, and yet he does many things wrong. He's gone actually from being very fair to Israel to condemning Israel, but he was given no choice because of what Israel did in the Ukraine to kill Russians, and what Israel did in Iran, which was an important Russian ally twice, and Israel's role in Syria. So he was forced by Israel to turn on Israel. The same thing is true with China. Israel forced China to turn on them. And so while I would hold him against that, and I don't like the fact that he plays homage to the Russian Orthodox Church and Christianity, he is still the best informed, most controlled and articulate leader in the world. And I don't think there's anyone close to him. Certainly not in Israel. Certainly not in America. Certainly not in Europe. Not in Asia. Boy, you look at Asia right now with Japan having tizzy fits over the Russian control of the islands that they claimed at the end of World War II, after all the Japanese did in that war. And you want to complain about that? And the yen is cascading, and the yen is absolutely imploding. Japan is on the precipice of not existing as a country anymore. So I just wanted to give people a chance to see a little bit of the world as I have been led to see it. I have a very different view of the world than others. I've been in the Ukraine. I hate it. Ultimate slime. The worse than the Nazis. And you go through countries like Poland, and you see them try to deny their participation in the Holocaust, and yet they were not only were they vicious towards Jews, they remain vicious towards Jews. You see the great pain that the UK inflicted on the world over all of those years, and how they resurrected the lie of Palestine at such great cost, and then reneged on the Balfour Declaration. These things, I have a long memory, and I've seen a lot. I just have a different view of Russia than most everyone else.
Oh, I can concur with you completely on Russia. I mean, my best friend in the world was Russian. My sister's Russian, ethnically.
Okay.
I mean, they really Russian that they came here from in 1999, so I've had very in-depth conversations about Russia with Russians, so I can concur with you there as far as they are people. You have an experiential life where you have gone out and seen the world, and I've kind of stayed in one place and the world has come to see me,
Yes.
so I mean,
I don't think I could do this job, Kevin, without having seen the world, been there everywhere. I think, and in fact, I don't think I could do this job had I not one time been a Christian. And been a patriot at one time in my life, or have been risen by a father who was an anti-Semitic racist. You learn from each of these experiences, and you need to have these experiences. Otherwise, you don't really have a perspective on the world. When people talk about China today, I was there, the first group of 10 people that went into China after it was opened up and legal to travel to a Westerner. I know what it's like to go down the street and have millions of people there to just watch you walk down the street. And then I went back and built enterprise zone factories when they were first conceived. And then I watched enterprise zone factories inside of China change the world, where they're the most innovative people now by far in the world. And I've watched because I had such extraordinary experiences with the Taiwanese Chinese, where they were the most honorable people I ever dealt with, where I never had a written agreement. It was always a handshake. And we did so many wonderful things together. And then to see those Chinese are the ones who went into China with their skills and business and built those enterprise zones. And so, it's just a very different view of the world. You spend time in the concentration camps in Poland, you're going to walk out a changed human being. I mean, I mention them, and the smell of the shoes and the mountain of shoes, it just permeates my mind. I will never get that out of my mind.
There's another part of that as well, is that you have to have those experiences because you can't hate what you don't know, okay, and you have a unique task that very soon that it's going to be your task to you're going to knock some stuff down. So and in order to do that,
the good thing that Yahweh has arranged is that those people who are serviceable, who have not swallowed the toxin, have grown up in it and have been susceptible to it, but have not gone to the point where they are promoting religion, politics, conspiracy, and militarism, such that they're salvageable. Everybody who is salvageable, Goy and Yehud, gets purged by the sacrifice of the Adam of Paran Turah. So everybody that's salvageable. I mean, I think that, there's only going to be between 1 and 2,000 Yehud, because they're just so thick-headed, so obnoxious towards God. I think of the Goyim who will be invited into the garden and will have the opportunities that Sukkah provides. They're a different class, mind you, because of the history of the Goy towards the Jew. But I think it's going to be in the hundreds of thousands. So, the fact that you have extraordinarily positive experiences in places and yet such horrible experience with controlling governments and with religion, I think that's very helpful. I don't think God wants a calloused individual that has no experience, no understanding to make arbitrary decisions. I think you have to.
I agree.
You have to have had these experiences to be reliable, and it's a big responsibility that God is offloading. He's not going to do that without having some confidence the person has the experience to handle it. And you can't the judgments that you need to make at that time cannot be your first experience making judgments like this.
Right. Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree. It's a big
One of
job.
the reasons why I came to the conclusion that Moshe's first life was as Yosef, not as Moshe. I don't think there's any way God's going to trust a boy that's floating down the Nile in a teba and say, we're going to make all this thing work around him unless he knew him. And the way to know him would be Yosef, whose name just coincidentally means I'm going to do it again.
All right.
So anyway, yeah. When you hear a song like that, Rich, you grew up in the music business. What's your impression of the Russian national anthem and the way it was sung for those girls as they arrived?
It's a very emotional
Isn't it?
national anthem.
Yeah, it's a very moving music. I love music when it is emotional, when it just grabs you,
Yes.
and it says that I've seen that song played on YouTube where it's drone footage of Russia and all the villages through Siberia and the beauty. I mean, St. Petersburg is one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and Moscow now has become one of the most beautiful cities in the world too. And then you see the streets and the lifestyle and the pastures and the forests and the like, while that song is being played, and the volcanoes and the far east of the country. It's a very moving piece of music.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So anyway, I know that I'll have my critics that hate Ruskies, and if you want to go back to the communist period, you'd have a reason to do so. But if you're going to do that, then at least be fair, and to know that if it wasn't for the Russians, the Germans would have won in World War II.
Absolutely. That was a lovely song, beautifully performed. It was very moving,
Isn't it?
like you said.
Yeah, and particularly for the circumstance. I mean, those people gathered to honor young kids that went off to perform, and the first time they were able to do so, they prevailed under very harsh, petty circumstances, and they received them back like that. I just think and it was non-political. It was, Putin wasn't there trying to say, I want to capitalize on this. It was a gathering in a fairly small auditorium, fairly intimate. And this young man walks out, and he, without any musical backup, he belts out that song. Pretty amazing. And that's the Russia I know. All right. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to end on that note. We'll look forward to being with you later today and again tomorrow. Thank you, Roger, for participating. And always, Kevin, you're wonderful. Appreciate it.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.